Assalamu alaikum. I hope I don't shock you by saying that yes, there are lies and liars in the Quran. What am I saying? Give me a minute and I'll explain what I'm saying. Assalamu alaikum once more, by the way, because I know it's been a long time since we last spoke, but regardless, here we are to pick up where we left off. So what do I mean by that statement? Now, that statement is not just to draw your attention to what I'm about to say, but this is really, I believe, a case in methodology for us as we try and understand the Quran. So let's go back to the basics. Quran is the collection of true accounts from many speakers. Now, by definition of many speakers, not all of them are meant to be true. Not all of the speakers whose tales and accounts we find in the Quran are to be expected to be true. And what follows necessarily is that the Quran carries statements that are lies. Let me clarify that. So I'm absolutely clear. Quran truthfully provides the accounts of liars who lie. Liars who lie, when you talk about their lies and present their lies truthfully, even though you are conveying the lie, you are doing that truthfully. And that is what I meant when I said that yes, the Quran, the truth, al-haq min rabbikum min rabbina, yes, it contains lies. Now, a little word on the liars before I continue. Now, there are two types of liars. I'm sure there would be many depending upon which psychologist or school of philosophy you belong to, but let's keep it generic. There are those who lie knowingly, and then there are those who lie out of ignorance. So there are two types of liars. Now, before I continue, I can see it's been a long time since I did a live stream as well. So all those who are live right now with me, assalamu alaikum to you once more. I welcome you. I know it's been a while. It's good to be able to interact with you live once more. So I can see Auric, Abdurrahman, Falcon, Aslam, Shabana, and all those who will watch later as well, and Fatima, all of those who will watch later as well. Hopefully, you will continue to absorb what the Quran has to say. And I think this video here is a very good lesson in how we tackle with some really complex ayats of the Quran, and how can we understand them through the application of methodological principles that allow us to really unpack the surface level meaning, the adornment, the superficial layers, the level 1 meanings that I call them, and really understand the gist of what it is that the Quran is talking about. We got Sufyan as well on the comments. One other quick reminder that I've been giving throughout the series. It is a series, so if you've only going to be starting from this video today, there might be a few terms that you might not understand the way we've been using them throughout this series, such as what is Islam, who is a Muslim, what is Iman, who is a Mu'min. Now, all of these things we have covered thoroughly from a very strict, strong, firm linguistic perspective and a foundation that is based upon I would say, unchallengeable morphological principles of the language Arabic. Now, if you haven't seen those previous videos, you may have some questions when you come across this video. If that's the case, please, I ask you to go back to the beginning, start from there. Now, it also goes to those who, I know it's been a while, so if you're only really coming now and you've got questions as in reminders, I would suggest you to do the same thing. Yeah. So who's a Muslim? Muslim is not somebody who utters certain words, nor is a mu'min someone who utters certain words or carries out certain physical exercises 5 times a day or specific times a day. That makes that person a mu'min. That is not what the Quran ever talks about, and that is what we have been talking about so far. So if I continue on, as we have said, Iman is clearly giving security and removing fear, and that has been clear so far. However, there is at least one ayah that I parked up until now, because I know that ayah that I'll talk about now cannot be understood if we take that ayah on a level 1 surface level meaning, because that ayah seems to be saying that Iman is all about saying words, is uttering things of what you apparently believe in your heart. And that is one ayah that, in a way, I expected people to have brought up by now. But even though it hasn't come up, in order to be an honest student of the Quran, I wanted to bring this up because I grappled with this ayah, and I wanted to bring this up so we can appreciate how complex the narrative of the Quran is, and how we are always at a risk of being swept away by an understanding of the Quran that remains superficial unless we pay attention to who is saying, to whom they're saying, why they're saying, what words they're saying, what forms of the words they're utilizing, etc., etc. You need to know all of that before you really understand the Quran. Now, this is not rocket science. This is common sense. This is really, if you're following through in today's world, if you're watching Netflix, and if you want to understand the bigger picture, you got to put things together. And that's what the Quran demands from you. It's not just keep uttering, keep earning hasanat, 10 hasanats for every harf that you utter, and every word that you say, you get 30 or 40, whatever hasanat. And you got apps like Tartil that let you count how many hasanat you earn throughout the day. The Quran is far, far beyond that. Before I continue, I'm just going to have a quick look at the comments. I've got quite a few more people as well. Safiullah Khan, Quran is Shah Islam, Kulsum. All right, I'm going to keep going. So this is the ayah. The ayah goes like this. And by the way, the references are obviously on the website. On when you watch it, if you wanted to, you could always zoom in and you'd always find the references for the ayat. So the ayah goes, وَجَاوَزْنَا بِبَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ الْبَحْرَ فَأَتْبَعَهُم فِرْعَوْنُ وَجُنُودُهُ بَغْيًا وَعَدْوًا حَتَّى إِذَا أَدْرَكَهُ الْغَرَقُ. Now here comes the real part. قال, he said, آمنت أنه لا إله إلا الذي آمنت به بنو إسرائيل وأنا من المسلمين. So until when the drowning overtook him, he said, that's the Firawn, he said, I believe that none has the right to be worshipped but he in whom the children of Israel believe, and I am one of the Muslims, as in those who submit to Allah's will. Now this is a translation from Hilali and Khan. So as I said, if our view was to be correct, our understanding of the Quranic terms for Iman was to be the removal of fear, amanahu min al-khawf, and grantor of security, which makes Allah the al-mu'min, well then how do we understand this ayah? Because this ayah, if I just read the translation and keep going, well, this seems to be saying to me that, well, to be completely honest, if we take these words, Iman is being associated with saying that you don't believe in anybody except whoever those certain people believed in, and I am actually one of those Muslims as well. So as in equating, it's the equation of what you believe and matching this up with your words, which makes you a Muslim, and this is what you are doing as part of the Iman. So a lot of things are happening in this one particular ayah. So that ayah could be brought up as a case against the point that we've been making throughout this series. However, that might not be as simple a case to make, as we will talk. Now, this might sound counterintuitive rather is the word that I wanted to use. But as I said from the very beginning, we need to understand in the Quran that it's an account of liars who lie, right? And what is a better way, how better to understand a liar than by understanding or listening to what another liar said? So that another liar that we're going to listen to now, so we can understand Firawn, is none other but al-adu, an enemy that for us, lakum, lana, mubin, clear, manifest. That is Iblis. So Iblis says, قال Rabbi bima aghwaytani. Iblis said, oh my Lord, because you misled me. So Iblis says to his Lord, to Rabbihi, bima aghwaytani, because you misled me, la uzayyinanna lahum fil ardi, I shall also indeed adorn the path of error, wa la ughwiyannahum ajma'in, and I will mislead them all. So that is what Iblis says in the Quran. These are the words copied for us, narrated to us completely as they were said by the Al-Haq, the truth, Al-Quran. Iblis, our manifest enemy, says that. So question, are we meant to take Iblis's words here? Because if we do, and again, once more, if we stay at that surface level, the level one, then what we're really taking away from this is what we hear from people who criticize the Quran, that Allah is this being who sits on this throne, and he's got a beard in the biblical tradition that seems to has carried over into our environments as well. But he's this powerful being, this poder, he's got all this poder, and this being, He has got the power to give guidance to whoever he wants, and he can mislead anybody he doesn't like. As in, well, we don't really have any free will. We're just here. It's all just abath. This is all just a, you know, it's just a farce. We're just taking part in a play we never asked to be a part of, and we are just puppets. And the puppeteer, we don't see him, but the puppeteer has, in a way, the puppeteer has already determined for us what's going to end for us. So that's what they say. And one of those statements that they might derive from the Quran is this statement from Iblis, that because my Rabb, you are the one who misled me, I'm going to do all of this and that. So the question is, well, Iblis, you know, this guy, well, this poor guy, what choice did he really have? Well, hold on a second. By reading through the Quran, and though this is not our topic, but if we go through the Quran, the concept of free will is crystal clear. We're going to talk about this at the very end as well. Allah does not lead anyone astray. Beings with free will choose themselves to become astray. However, and this is where the challenge comes in, Allah's system is the one who necessarily allows them to choose whether they do right or wrong. So the system in which we live in, that system we did not choose. No, we did not choose the game in which we were planted in. We are here, whether we like it or not. We are here. And in this environment, the game that we are taking part in this game, we do have free choice. We could be those who do good or those who don't do good. As in, by putting us in here and charging us with free will, Allah's system allows anyone to either become astray, make himself astray, make herself astray, or keep themselves on the right. That is what it comes down to. And that's not a very complex concept if one goes through all of the ayats that are concerning this topic. So if you come back to Iblis, a manifest liar, well, when Iblis said that, Rabbi bima aghwaytani, is Iblis saying the truth? I'm going to say and declare, based upon all what the Quran says, that Iblis is lying here. Now, the only question that I think one can legitimately pose here, well, is Iblis lying knowingly, or is he doing that out of ignorance? Does Iblis know what he's saying? Or does he not even have an idea? As in, is there a psychological stage where once he has reached that, he doesn't even realize what he's saying? He's past the comprehension that's required for one to understand how much of a hole they put themselves in. Regardless of that, the point remains this: Iblis's words are not to be trusted. Even if you have got words from, let's say a killer being recorded, a notorious killer being recorded in the New York Times, even though the New York Times article contains truth, the message that's been recorded from and being presented to you truthfully from that killer does not necessarily mean it's going to be true as well. And that's quite a clear, I think quite a simple, straightforward point that we've been making here. So if we return to the Firawn, what is the Firawn really saying? The Firawn, by the way, throughout the Quran, for those who read the Quran and pondered and again gone past the superficial ideas that are spoon-fed through to us, you know, this king of kings, and he's got all this power and all of these, he sits on this throne and he is a tyrant and everybody just bows to him. I think the Quranic archetype of the Firawn is way more nuanced, multi-dimensioned personality. He's a complicated person, one who never really gets it, one who is plotting, one who is plodding, one who is weaving all of these webs of deceit. And I do see him like that. I don't understand the whole story yet, not yet, you know, and to be completely honest. But I do understand that what we read about the Firawn is a multi-layered story that you've got to be very careful when you're trying to unpack it. Now, keeping that into mind, when we come back in here and apply two key methodological principles on this ayah, I think we understand the ayah better. Number one, we've got to watch out for who's saying this. So Firawn throughout the Quran is not somebody that you trust. It's not somebody whose words you just take and say, oh, whatever he says, just like Iblis, must be correct because it's in the true book. No, you got to pay attention to what he's saying, why, and what does he really want to get out of it. And that's what it ultimately comes down to. What is his motive? and what is the scope of his knowledge when he's making that claim, right? So that's point number one. And point number two, we've got to understand the terms of the Quran that are used throughout in the Quran by the people who Allah asks us to follow as an example, as a qudwa, as role models for us. So whenever they use the words Iman or Islam or Muslim or Mu'min, we've really got to pay attention to how they are utilizing this, how Allah in his own, whenever he talks about himself, how that is being presented through to us, to understand how do we take those key terms and put them into the words of people, saying to understand whether those people understand those terms or not. I hope that made sense. I really hope that makes sense. If it didn't, obviously the failure is with me, but maybe a bit of rewinding might help as well. So how do we understand this ayah? I'm going to skip the first part, but if I start from قال, he said, آمنت أنه لا إله إلا الذي آمنت به بنو إسرائيل وأنا من المسلمين. I think my translation that I'm going to pick might shock you because I'm not going to change what Hilali and Khan translated this as. I'm actually going to stay largely with what they say. And I'm going to say, Firawn did really at this point say, I believe, the emphasis is on believe, that none has a right to be worshipped. Again, worshipped, I'm saying this in double quotations, even though you can't see it. But he, in whom the children of Israel believe, and I'm one of the Muslims, as in one who submits to Allah's will. So hold on a second. You might say, Moses, what is happening in here? Are you really just agreeing here with this translation? I thought you were going to come up and say, this translation is not right, this translation is wrong, we've got to change this, there's been a fundamental mistake, etc. Well, to be honest, in this particular example, the translation, even though it's incorrect technically, but from the perspective of Firawn, it is correct, because Firawn is somebody who is utilizing the terms Iman, Islam, Muslim, Mu'min incorrectly. This is the archetype of the Firawn being presented through to us. This tyrant, this lord of lords, as he wanted to call himself and wanted himself to be known as, that person, up until the end, didn't know what Iman meant, who a Muslim was, what Islam was. He saw around him what was happening, and he uttered words that he saw around them, thinking that is what is required from him. And that is in a way an extremely surprising takeaway, a very short but very surprising takeaway as an end for this personality of the Quran, that throughout whatever he does and plots and thinks of himself, in the end he makes a very basic mistake, and that is either he doesn't understand up until the very end, or he continued to lie. And that is something that's quite interesting. So as I said, I would say this is one of those rare times where I had to agree with the traditional translation. I did not change Hilali and Khan's translation because if you put those words into the mind of that person, Firawn, then they do match, because that is indeed how Firawn was dealing with this concept. So as I said, either Firawn, I can only find two options. Either he, either he kept lying to his own self up until the end, or he remained ignorant. What is more tragic between the two options? I don't know. But what we do take away from this is, in a way, this is a tragic story. So from a person who said, I am the supreme Lord, I'm the Rabb of all Arbab, and in the end, he just became someone who was parroting words that he heard, thinking that is what he needs to say to get out of trouble that he has made. That mere words, the mere uttering certain sentences will completely wipe out all of the mistakes that he's made so far. I think that's a tragedy. I think that's a story that has got layers that we just don't even get to appreciate if we continue at this level, at that other level, where it's all about the superficial stuff, or level one, things that we just don't get past to appreciate the rich tapestry and the narrative structure that we find in the Quran. I'm going to finish today. This is a very short session, but before I do, I'm going to have a very quick look at the comments, just to make sure if there's anything relevant to what we talked about that I can cover before we finish. So, yep, Baish, I don't know how to say your name, Baisha says, Assalamu alaikum to you, Ishtiyaq Ahmed, Mushtaq Kamal, and Abdul Rahman. No, Iblis, well, okay, well, we'll talk about what job has Iblis got, but what we do know is, well, this matches up really well with the ayah that I wanted to finish on, and I will just let that ayah do the speaking in answer to the question that you raised here, brother. And it is all about free will, but it also covers the topic of Iman. وَقُلْ, and say, declare, Al-haqqu min rabbikum, the truth is from your nourisher, from your carer. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ, then whoever wills, you, me, people around us, regardless of whatever names they call themselves, regardless of what traditions they belong to, what cultures they come from, whether the label that we put on them, I'm sorry, is Hindu, which we say is not Islam, or whether the label they put on themselves is Shia or Ahmadi, or whether the label they put on themselves is even of an agnostic, or a label that they put on, I don't know, a secular, Republican, Georgian, I don't know, put whatever human-made labels, Asma, these are just names that we've made up. These names don't matter at all. For man sha'a, whoever wants, whoever wills, whoever wishes to do, wishes, فَلْيُؤْمِنْ, then he should spread peace. Then let him go and remove pain. Anybody who has got the potential, anybody who's got the power, anybody who's got the means, and he does it, he is doing it because he has been given this power. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ, and whoever wants, whoever in the scheme of things that Allah has set for us, whoever wants to willingly, فَلْيَكْفُرْ, then let him knowingly reject. Let him knowingly reject. So I think this was a really nice way of wrapping up this 6th video of the series. So we here have a choice, and that choice is to be a mu'min, or be a kafir, or be a mufsid. These are our choices that have been given through to us. But from a methodological perspective, I wanted to really hit this ayah from the angle that helps us understand the Quran and interact with this on a deeper level, on a more sophisticated basis than there's someone who just goes through page by page by page in order to earn hasanat, not paying attention to who is saying what to whom, why, and in which words. So on that note, hopefully this video has been of use. Until the next time, Assalamu alaikum.